process with existing emergent technologies during a formal training of the artistic formal training. And these are vehicles for research into the utility for knowledge transfer in arts higher education, and also collaborative platforms for artistic exploration. And we have a couple of questions, and also particular in tertiary education, where it's not only to suppose develop artistic training, but also artistic research training or research training. So how to extend the experience of the artwork produced during artistic research training as a form and a knowledge transfer to future PhD candidates. So it's about caring also about future PhD candidates, and also about how to transfer knowledge to peer researchers. And for so, we are bringing a couple of case studies which will give you an overview of the instruction methods at fall, highlight the overlooked potential of the exhibited works that sometimes are not so highlighted, and they're documenting ways of the process making. We also try to show you how this can be discussed in terms of practice, and locate them on the research map. These case studies also point to creative connectedness, enabling emerging questions and triggers for future and comparative inquiry. And if we think about framing artistic retraining in arts, we can see that central to this practice is the artifact. And this is, we are just quoting a text from Candy and Edmonds that says the artifact is central to practice. And this can be visual or sound objects, installations, or performances. And these provide the basis for research. Also, we would like to highlight a report of the European Commission on new modes of learning and teaching in higher education, which are centered in object-based learning and also process-oriented works that promote discussion, stimulate thought, problem-solving, connect knowledge, evidence and interpretation, experimentation, to name a few. And we also highlight, with these case studies, this kind of shift, the educational turn in arts, and also the artistic turn, with the implementations as a brief, with the third cycle in higher education, and concerning art practice. Literature started to speak about the educational turn in art, and also the artistic turn. This type of research with a strong practical component was an uneasy relationship at the beginning with the academy, but has been consolidated through many stages of the artistic training, theoretical and practice base, and is now available in the form of theses in PDF format in the university repositories. Of course, there are also platforms and journals regarding artistic research that began to emerge, but we shall say that this is not very intuitive for our students, because it has a miscellaneous of things and works, and you cannot see what is the basis, if it is a bachelor work, a PhD work. So we are still thinking about how to develop further this dissemination. And we shall just have a brief chronology about our research training and our artistic training at FBAL. First, in the 90s, we joined the University of Lisbon. We were just, previous to that, Superior School of Fine Arts. We had started with the intense artistic research training, second cycles and third cycles in education related to the field of fine arts. And in 2009, we started to focus on advanced training, which is theoretical and practice engagement and postdoc programs. The repository of the Faculty of Fine Arts offers many of these paths through knowledge, to the knowledge domain. So we will be focused on these case studies that are related to multimedia art courses and sculpture courses. And we should say as well previously how materiality must be thought beyond the dichotomy of analogic and virtual environment, which is to say both are embedded in the work in progress of our students. So digital devices and media are really presented in different stages of the process, whether they are not visible. And we can say that in sculpture, we must say that we have an established sets of methods, roles, everything. That can be the subtract, the add technique, and also some methods of carving, casting, and modeling. Well, touch is very important, as we cannot dismiss this multisensorial approach when creating. When regards to clay, for instance, we also have the carving with wood and stoneworks, and also the adding process with, for instance, the plaster techniques. And I now should pass to my brilliant colleagues. We'll go further deeper in this idea of creative practice, presenting results and dissemination regarding hybrid process of digital, non-digital, which tend to dismiss this kind of dichotomy. So please, José.
Good morning to you all. Welcome to this quick presentation, because we have lots of pictures, but we have no time. So it will be like a flash interview. I teach in our faculty, the Faculty of Fine Arts of the University of Lisbon, where I teach the traditional sculpture methods and also the digital tools and digital sculpture. So I am going to show you some of our student works and exercise, and I think that you will be able to get an idea of the things that we can do with that. And of course, it is used also for investigation in projects in the field, in the area of sculpture. So, as you can see, in the bachelor, we have two unities. One is called 3D modeling, the other is digital sculpture project design. So the digital tools are used to develop a methodology and a design project of sculpture. Then in the master in sculpture, we have the digital sculpture unity, where our students develop some works in the realm, of course, of the virtual and hybrid environments. So let's start. This is one of the first exercises that they have to do. This is made in clay, this is modeled in clay, and then they have to transport these to digital media. So this is the same object, but sculpted in a direct software. Here we have other examples of in the beginning this was a cube, and so they have to use different tools to make the model, to make an organic modeling shape. Another exercise is this one, that it consists in slicing a parallelepiped and to create public sculpture that is also mandatory that we have to be able to travel among the sculpture. So I will show you some images by clicking. Another example, and as you can see, this is our rendered environments. So they have to slice and then they have to move and change the scales. And of course, we can, in the end, we can travel among these with virtual assets, or to make an animation or a video as output, excuse me, as an output file Here we have the organic modeling in models, human head modeling, with, of course, this is made with software. Another exercise that consists in, as my presentation from last week, they will start to do a physical model, and then they will have to try several experiences in the digital field. So this is made by card, and now this is already the digital model. And of course, the studies renders of the environment that can be seen if the sculpture is made. Well, anyway, this gives us also the possibility, I will show you further, just only with one 3D file we can do lots of things. So we can sculpt and we can introduce that in a project, and also we can have lots of information regarding the manufacturing of these, for example, of this sculpture. You see, because we can then put all the measures needed to do an industrial construction. So one file, I used to say that the digital works more or less like Bimbi, you know, that thing that we use in the kitchen. It's a robo cuisine artifact, so it's more or less like the digital tools. This is a project to medals. Another one, the renders. This is a 3D printing here. The left one, it's a 3D print of the basis of this trophy. And here it's another work. This is for the last year of the bachelor, that the student has these strange devices or helmets, and then it was digitalized with photogrammetry. So here on the left side you can see the process, and on the right side you can see the output, which is the the digital mesh, the polygonal mesh of which is the output of the photogrammetry process. And here at the bottom we have already the 3D model of what was of the physical model that was scanned, and then the integration in the virtual environment. And as you can see, this is also the whole integration, because this was a public sculpture to integrate in a mine. Another one. And here we have the render output of this. So all the process is modeled, and then the photo render output. And I think that now we are going to see another project, which is to integrate in this grass a public sculpture. These are studies, 3D studies. So as you can see here, we have the technical drawings that we can have them using the 3D file. So this is the render, the integration in the public space, because the student have to do the sculpture and to model the public space also. This is with textures, texture mapping. Another project. This is a AR project. So in the left side it's a picture, the right side it's the project, and this is an interactive sculpture where this strange bubble shape reacts with the sound. So let us see. This is the video. Well, why does the video... Excuse me. That's it. Anyway, it's just for you to see that the structure reacts to the... oh no, this is this is from another environment. Another render process. And so I told you it was a very quick show. Now I will pass the word to Monica. Oh, this is, excuse me, this is still a PhD process that was used by this student to carve the soil, because she has to do an integration of a sculpture. So this was carved by CNC, although the process was digitalized in clay. And so this is already the physical sculpture with the drawings, technical drawings, the physical model, and the sculpture in locos. So this is not virtual, this is real. Okay, thank you very much. I will pass the word to Monica.
Thank you. So now my role is to present some of the diversity of works we've been doing, some of the diversity of the works we've been doing at the Multimedia Art as a way of tackling the iterance between the physical and the digital worlds. So as a way of, we have the bachelor, the master, and the PhD, showing some of those works. And this can be somehow, we have had the challenges, how can we share the knowledge, and how can we build further work, further acquaintances after the work that has been done by other students. So during the semesters, whether it's in the masters or the degree or the bachelor, all the students have online platforms where they publish their work, the process, and they share with each other. The good thing is not using for platforms like Moodle, for example. The idea is to work with open platforms like the blog WordPress, where users are, where the students are co-authors, so they share the work during the semester. They can comment on each other's projects. They can also have access to the other classes' projects and the previous year. So this way they build, the next year they build on that. So for each class there is a project. We also have some challenges like, okay, creating contents for the virtual world, but this student, specifically, Erasmus student Federica Duca, she was interested in fashion and the texture, so she designed an experience in the virtual world inspired in the Brazilian lençóis do Maranhão, and it's a sand scenario that here is substituted by the texture. So that we have the visual suggestion of the texture, but in the physical world, for the experience with virtual reality glasses, she also designed the floor device, the artifact, which is you have to have your barefoot to feel the tissue and to enjoy the presentation. Other challenges like using already previous knowledge that has been previously shared in platforms like Thingiverse, but this one is for laser cutting. So the Flown, a structure to integrate a phone for drone, and then to do some augmented reality works with that kind of device, and sharing it in, for example, in this case, a master thesis, not only sharing, whoops, yeah. Mm-hmm. sorry, and the master thesis, but then sharing not only what has been done, but also what are the plans for future works. And here, in the scope of PhD, for example, in augmented reality, this Brazilian student and researcher, and he's also a professor of 3D, he worked on augmented reality for self-portrait and performance. So the challenge was to integrate all these possibilities and to test according to test and experiment according to each of the possibilities and available resources. So at the beginning, we had these kind of challenges, like, okay, like let's mix the pandemic restrictions with some with the markers and QR codes, and and have this added layer of information. But then he started also going to the real world and doing some more geographical. Well, this is in the performance. In the performance, the mark is a moving target, and we still had other challenges. And then going to the outside world and having the markers in the body and outside. So in the next steps, he decided to do some photogrammetry of his own face. Okay, thank you. Of his own face and traveling in the real space. So this is the animation in the Terreiro do Passo in Lisbon. And after this partnership with a master student of technologies, how can we, instead of having this connected to a visual marker or to the geographical space, how can we have it attached to the body? So some experiments using this technology to attach the elements to the body. So we see the body, and then we say where the element is very small here is going to be connected to, and then you can reconfigure. And so it's to also to create new tools for performance. The idea is that not only to use the existing tools or not to be restricted to what is available, but also to consider other possibilities and explore a bit further. So after he finished his PhD, this all has been shared in not only papers in the thesis and the online platforms, but also in the metaverse. After the PhD, he decided to make to do his own exhibition at home in Maranhão, and to have it shown in what he would consider the ideal gallery. So in Spatial IO, in Spatial, he created this environment where all the artworks are there. So he's his own curator here. And so there's always other iterations. Okay, and at last, another PhD student is working with virtual reality and AI. So there are other challenges here, because he's creating the code from scratch to create new emotional outputs. So it's visual and audio outputs. I cannot hear it here, but visual and audio outputs. Okay. With the microphone, we speak our feelings, and our feelings are translated into images that through AI are gathered, and then they are processed into equirectangular images and delivered as spheres. And each sphere represents a memory, and a memory attached to feelings. So this is the challenge that we'll get to know a bit better later on. And this is the immersive experience that it's intended to be shown not only in the VR glasses, but also to display around and be shown to other people. All these experiments are placed in the virtuality reality continuum in several of these spots. So we could, if we would have all these dimensions covered. And for final thoughts, Elena will.
Just to conclude, we consider, these artifacts as epistemic objects can be devices, methods, and final artifacts in the way that they are the product of the artistic research training. And we shall not forget that this should consider experience, should not consider the theoretical thoughts alone, but in a kind of reflexive practice. They are practice-based research, but they are combining what we are thinking of and how we can develop and improve such connectivity and share, because we are considering to care for knowledge transfer. And so we think these are evidences that demonstrate they are not just only for the practitioner researcher, but also to a wider world. And in this, I should consider also that in a kind of breaks a little bit the idea of a hylomorphic model. It's not about doing, but rather about making, which is different. And this should be our direction regarding our what we also are presenting to you. So we want to develop, obviously in the scope of CAP, strategies for artistic research education regarding arts material literacy in hybrid spaces, which means give an awareness of hybrid environments and their potential. And so we think that we may enhance the artifacts within artistic research practice as epistemic instances that emerge from the research. And this can be a build of artistic community, because it's about experience and it's all about fruition and giving a knowledge sharing of embodied knowledge and shared experience. So that we think we can reach an artistic research wider community, and also we think that the sites of the academy that produce dissertations and PhD theses, these considered as sites for knowledge, can really think about exploring and extending materiality in relation to new hybrid possibilities, such as 3D printing real materials as concrete and clay. And this is really about material literacy also. So, Asante, thank you, obrigado. Questions and comments, and also leading with us. Okay.
For the questions, we have a background.
Yeah, how can we put this? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Do not leave the place. I'm sure there are many questions. Yeah. We have approximately 3 minutes, so who's the first? Bogna.
I have a question about how do you reconcile the level of perfection in your students' outputs when you are working with them toward making something, and they are at a certain level of development of their skills and their scopes, with the perishability, I don't know how to say, of such objects. And do you display them? Do you keep them? The works that your students make, are they good enough according to you to keep them, to share them with the wider community? Do they make an impact?
Well, if you think you are always, we have a long life learning for everyone. And if you dismiss the idea of totally perfection, but think that things can be cut to the cross, you will have to think that these examples of case study are not totally for a professional environment, but are to share. That is the thing of the object learning experience, or the object-oriented. They are sufficient, good enough to contain process, thought. They are focused on that, sharing. And this is the care for knowledge not this perfection. That's why I was telling also this kind of, it's not about doing, which is much related to project developing in the procedures, but also about making. So it contains a myriad of actions and instances that can be triggers to transfer knowledge. But maybe my colleagues would like to give from the case studies an example. Sorry.
The idea is that, well, it's not to have the full well, the evaluation of a project that counts, but projects are shown from one year to another to the students and are also disseminated according to parts of the process. So one project is highlighted for being more activist, or another project is for doing another more creative or original combination. And sometimes we are challenged with languages that we might not feel that much identified with. For example, this PhD student who had the face here, and when he used photogrammetry, he was doing this. And I thought, well, this is the first sketch of using photogrammetry. Then we will complete the digital sculpture. And he said, no, I wanted to use it that way. I want it rotten. I want it rough, because I want it to be uncomfortable. So I got used to it. We get used to it. We discuss the meaning of this concept. So yeah.
Thank you. We have one more question from Mr. Mutuma Marangu.
Very interesting presentation, and obviously I'm hoping we can continue to develop our relationship between TMMSIC and the University of Lisbon. My question very simply is, it was very helpful for me to visualize the work in particular of Professor José. My interest is in understanding where you took the drawings, okay, and then you moved them into the virtual aspect. Were those precise drawings, or were they basically by hand? And is the context that you initiated, how are you initiating it? And I'm saying that because the sculptors within the core team of TMMSAC, it is the conceptualization of the original. For example, in A Family at Prayer, where he actually came up with the drawing, he then made the maquette, which I showed you, and then he made a 12-ton rendering. So my issue is to understand, how is that initial construct initiated? Because I think it's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you have different ways to do it. It is not mandatory that you start with a physical object or with drawings. Most of the time, my students do it by only with the computer. So the digital tools is also very, I don't know the term. Anyway, you can create all the conceptual process, the creative process. It can be done using the softwares. So it is not needed to use the analog tools or even drawings. Although, of course, that if you want it, you are able to do it. So usually, if a sculpture wants to model something in material process, then he can scan or digitalize that little model, and in the computer he will have much more opportunities to transform and to look for different paths, because you can do it in real time. For example, if I do something in clay and I want to transform it, I will lose the stage where I was. Here, as you know, I just need to do save as. And the save as gives me the opportunity to start in another path. in another direction. So it is very useful. The digital tools are very useful to the process of the creation and speculation in terms of shape and modeling. It was a very good question. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but the following question should be postponed to coffee break or lunch break, since we are late, delayed by time. And we should start a series, so we move this talks about hybrid environments to really hybrid space. Since we are going to enjoy a series of 3 talks online only, and I need to understand if all members are ready. So let me ask if Małgorzata, Noemi, and Oluwatosin are with us online. Can we see the list of online participants of Google Meet? Małgorzata?
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, we do hear you. So Małgorzata...
I hear you, but I think they don't, because I don't hear them either, so I don't know.
Okay. So actually I'm ready because I'm the first one, but I don't know how could I share my presentation. So
I don't know either, because I also was looking for, like a place where to, because they said that we have to share the presentation, but I haven't find where to share it, so I don't know if I'm sorry, I can help you with that.
I will try to do that, but I don't know that we are waiting for the answer from the rest of participants online.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let me know. Noemi is ready too. And Oluwatosin, are you with us? Not yet, maybe. Okay, so let me introduce Małgorzata Danczewicz-Pawlik with her talk about video synthesis exhibition, hybridity as a continuum between the analog and digital in video synthesis. Małgorzata is from University of Wrocław from Poland. I hope all is going to be all going to work. So let's try to share your screen and start your talk.
Hear me well?
Now we do hear you.
I don't know that. Do you hear me?
Now we do hear you.
I will try. Oh, I would like to ask you, do you hear me and see me or my presentation now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me to take part in this event. It's a big pity for me that I'm able to join you only online, but anyway, it's a great pleasure. So my presentation will be about hybridity as a continuum between the analog and the digital world in video synthesis, so in particular in video art, on the example of video synthesis exhibition, and two, or actually 3 case studies from the exhibition. So please give me a while to switch to another slide. So first of all, I would like to briefly explain what that technology means. So video synthesis is a technique of producing video signals through a video synthesizer, a device that electronically creates audiovisual waveforms, actually visual but also audiovisual waveforms. And the video synthesizer is able to generate a variety of visual material, but without a camera input, through the use of internal video pattern oscillator, for example, at the base, it's oscillator. And it's able to transform these generated images by different kind of ramps for shapes, for example, keyers for colors, and different mixers that change this signal in different way. So from where the idea of the video synthesis exhibition was, this is the event that is a part of Intermediale Festival, which has been organized since 1994 in Poland, in Legnica, in city near of Wrocław in Lower Silesia. And the exhibition itself, as a part of this festival, has a biennial formula. And in 2023, we will hold the 29th edition of Intermediale Festival. And next year, in 2024, we will hold the 3rd edition of video synthesis. In general, Intermediale as the festival presenting interdisciplinary project that creatively combine image and sound, showing currently directions and trends in audiovisual art, but also a kind of media archaeology. And in general, festival presents audiovisual concert performances, video and sound installations, video art screening, and many different forms of audio and video coexistence. And what about the idea of the exhibition? It was early 2020 when we began work on the first edition, as of course always integral part of Intermediale Festival. And we did not suspect at the time that it would be the opening of a certain chapter with the continuation, with big continuation and development into video synthesis second, and plans for the 3rd edition into next year. And the exhibition is a unique presentation of video art based on video synthesis technology, and is an attempt to show the contemporary trends and tradition behind this field of art. And the idea of hybridity and the idea and technology of waveforms video art lays in many layers here, because artists perform as performers using video synthesis, perform the image and sound live in a kind of somatic interaction with the machine, with its hardware. The creative process is based on close interaction between what the artist wants to express and what the artist see and hears in the performance, which happens between man and machine. It's hardware, most of all. So the materiality of the machine, of the video modulars is very important, because they perform it with knobs and sliders and all the materiality of the machine. So the idea of hybridity here is also the idea of performativity in the sense of live performance and interaction with sound and image and between the man and the machine. And I will try to present different hybrid levels of techniques and artistic communities also, and of inheritance in art based on the work collected in these 2 editions that passed of video synthesis exhibition, using these 2 case studies that I will present in a while. But first of all, from where the idea of the exhibition comes, because it's very important to the notion of understanding hybridity between what is analog and digital in video art. At the beginning, it was the conviction that we would be able to remain faithful actually to just one medium, to analog video synthesis. But in spite of that, we carried out that the event was open to the very different modes of image producing, in spite of course, digital image producing. So that was as a tool, a video synthesizer, oscilloscope, VHS camera, video mixers, lasers, or even MRI techniques in the first edition. And it turned out that there is no other possibility in this time nowadays that artists work in different media, and even such a specific medium as video synthesis, video synthesizer, is never pure. So this was the point of our start with the thinking about the idea of the event, and fascination with the apparatus itself and with its performative possibilities. And also, of course, relations between audio and video. Among other reasons, why we wanted to organize the exhibition were also fascination by the media archaeology and legacy of the 60s, with such creators like Stein and Udi Vasul, Kanem, Junpei, Eric Ziegel, Steve Roth and Bill Etra, and of course Dan Sandin and Tom DeFanti. It was also searching of abstract video engaged into social and cultural threats, problematized here by the particular relationship of video images to reality, and the ways that the video are grounded in the context. At the time of video synthesis, first, it was a time of pandemic, so much of work concerned the time of pandemic, and when the idea of its implementation was running, we shared actually everything online. And that's why artworks here were either loose abstract variations on the medium or abstract variations or social justice, environmental collapses, as well as gender and racial discrimination or some other topics of the late capitalism. And so the idea of the abstract videos engaged in social discourses. And for the first edition, we invited selected artists to participate, and partly with ready works and partly with works that were created especially for the exhibition. And artists whose works related to analog video were known to us most of all from various thematic websites, communities, and discussion forums. And for the second iteration, we announced an open call. And for the first video synthesis, 22 artists were invited to participate with 80 works. The exhibition took place from the October to December 2020 at the Art Gallery in Legnica. But actually, it was the time of pandemic, so it took part mostly online with the participation of all these artists that you see on the slide. Here you can see some photos from the opening. It was strictly pandemic time, so everybody wore the masks. And I would like to present you one of the work, three-part video done by David France, who's artist from United States, titled Deeply Fried Microwaves, that explore the idea of hybridity in very particular way. The works deals with telecommunication, wave perception, and signal processing, and actually with a kind of technological progress in historical sense. It's all about electromagnetic waves, and that are the figurative and literal genesis of this piece. There is a specific meaning of the title of the work. Deep fried, as an adjective in culinary sense, means being cooked by immersion in hot oil or fat. And there is also another informal technology meaning, which means heavily filtered or over-processed for artistic or comedic purposes when it comes to some image or memes. So deep fried means heavily over-processed. And microwave, of course, is known with a culinary meaning. It's a microwave oven, but in engineering it means an electromagnetic radiation with wavelengths between 30 centimeters and 3 millimeters. It will appear in the while in the film that you will understand what I'm talking about. So the main question of this work was, what if we could not only see but also understand and see the information writing on different wavelengths? If we could, what would the experience be like? And what if we could, for example, see radio waves or microwaves? And the point of departure from for the video was the AT&T antennas and long lines wireless system. That was the first transcontinental microwave relay network, and played very important role in information age of 60s and Cold War era, because it's the very important point of the reference for this ground of notion of hybridity between analog and digital. And in 1951, AT&T had completed the first coast-to-coast microwave network that with the service to many major cities in the world. And with these antennas, artists recorded these antennas onto SVHS tape, sent it into digital editing and composing system. Antennas' colored signal were animated, processed through the video synthesizer, and recorded once again into SVHS tape. So the video signal was processed, reprocessed, and processed again using this culinary metaphor to being raw, sauté, and to being deep fried. And the audio came also from actual radio transmission recorded at the place from the air where the antenna was registered. And what illustrates the video? Video illustrates the waves that we could see if our eyes have the possibility to see microwaves, and what transmits one antenna to another. So maybe I will try to show you a piece, 2 minutes of that.
Plans for you later this afternoon. We've already seen a few coastal showers this morning. 70% coverage between 2:30 and around 7 or 7:30 tonight. We'll keep the radar active. Tomorrow, still at least a 60% rain coverage. The same for Saturday. Well, they're watching a little tropical wave east of Florida, expected to work past into the Gulf of Mexico. Not expecting it to develop. In fact, really nothing is forming close to home, which is great. But still quite dangerous. There's two named storms, but you could have Sally and Teddy developing on the coast of Africa over the next week or so. We'll keep an eye on everything for you, of course. The extended 5-day forecast 4 times an hour. I'm Jerry. I'm Tom, and on today is September 10th. That is the peak day of the hurricane season.
Okay, I will stop it and move forward. So this was the example of hybridity between analog and digital, and also hybridity of paradigms, culinary, art, communication system, as well as hybridity of medium. And radio waves, photography, audio and video correspond together here, and actually we see what we hear always. So the audio corresponds with the image. And next example I would like to share with you is a little bit different. This is also from the first edition of Video Synthesis. This is the work done by Mike Chelona, also from US, who proposed a series of analog videos converted, done of course with video synthesis, but converted into 360 environment for Oculus Go. And it was done in the form of theatrically video screening, but also in the form of installation loops. You can find it at the website of the artist and at his profile on YouTube. It's all available. With also for Oculus Go and for Google Cardboard for personal mobile phone. And these works were produced mainly using LZX video device and mixed with VDMX video mixer, and soundtrack was produced using guitar synthesizer. So all the content is also converted into immersive environment. So the second edition of the exhibition was done with the call for proposal in 2022, and for this call for proposal, call for works, we received 141 works done by 78 artists from 26 countries, and we selected 58 works for that, and the exhibition took place also partially in the Formula online, but at the place in the art gallery in Legnica. And works were done by the following artists that you see on the cover of the exhibition catalog. It was 33 artists from 12 countries. And I would like to present you one work. These are some photos from the exhibition also, normally open. So I'd like to present you one particular work that express also the idea of hybridity and explores this topic. It's a 4-minute romp through Alfred Sandin image processor, work done by Monica Panzerino. This is an homage to Chicago artist and toolmaker Dan Sandin video from 1973, titled 5-minute romp through the IP, where Sandin demos the image processor, a modular analog video synthesizer device that he built the same year, but with an open license. And Sandin encouraged artists to copy it, right, and to construct the same device as DIY. So by doing so, he took into account the development of technology, but also the development of an artistic community, what is very important, artistic community in which everyone could share and benefit the same extent. And in this video, artist Monica Panzerino chroma keys in real time the output of this rare and historically significant tool onto her green screen colored nails, what has also feminist remarks, and it makes this work hybrid from that merge video art with mail art also, and also Panzerino wears in her film her own hand-knit recreation of the unique hat by Dan Sandin, which he had in his original film from 1973. So like Monica Panzerino writes about her work, quotation, this piece celebrates the physicality of hardware, electronics, and the DIY spirit of all things handmade. What is very important, the materiality of working with video art is very important here. So let me start a short piece of the work. Video synthesizer and Monica Panzerino nails. Okay, so I see now some remarks here in the comments, and I don't know that do you hear me well? Is everything all right? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
So this was the homage to Dan Sandin, and I will switch to the next slide. So what the idea of Dan Sandin was, because this work is very significant when it comes to hybridity of 2D image into its conversion to immersive environment. Sandin started work on an image processor which led him into the invention of the Caphe, automatic virtual environment. I'm sure that you know this installation. This was actually the first immersive installation in the new media art, first well known, and waveform immersive environment does not have to be strictly analog or digital. It can be a hybrid environment understood as a continuum between the analog and the digital. So the roots of video synthesis are hybrid to mention the mutual influence of culture, of musical experimentation and video art done by Robert Mook or Don Buchla. Audio signal manipulation and video signal manipulation have roots in 70s or long 60s, like some calls it. The time when video began to no longer be a method of documentation, but a method of abstract and illusory creation. Also, AT, so Experiments in Art and Technology, and famous Project 9 Evenings Theater and Engineering. At the other project, the Art and Technology, at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and at the British Artist Placement Group, APG projects. So these are the main three that mention the authors of Hybrid Practices book that are based for the 60s and are the examples of hybridity of art, technology, and artistic and market industry ways of expressions in art. So authors of hybrid practices call such hybridity remapping the landscape of everyday life in the terms of technological mediation. So I would contribute to the view that this process began in the 60s actively in the field of art and technology, while in the field of art and what is non-art, considered by, for example, Fluxus also in 60s. And on the basis of these ideas and these experiences, the idea of hybridity in visual art arises, and some artists continue this idea to this day, such Sandin with his immersion installations. Without this installation that you see here on this slide is without use of VR glasses. So I will switch to summarizing these points and case presented here. What determines hybridity in audiovisual art is, for me, searching for new means of expression, always, cultural diversity in the understanding, for example, like Nam June Paik was a bearer of Eastern values to US, and awareness of the past, of course, and interdisciplinarity with the origin of the word hybridity from the horticulture. And what kind of hybridity, on what kind of hybridity can we talk in this context? On searching for new means of expression, well, artists deal with an analog video in 60s. They saw digital means of expression as something very interesting and empowering. And the same way today, the digital world seeks the materiality of analog signal processing machines, but also the materiality in some other ways, the materiality of objects, for example. This hybridity idea lays also on awareness of the past, of the media convergence, in a sense which media culture is always converged, so it is always hybrid. It always contains previous media, which makes hybridity its natural state of development, and on interdisciplinarity, crossing border both in the genre sense and in the understanding of medium, what distinguishes art from non-art and what concerns the transgressive sensory experience. And for the end, I would propose treating hybridity functionally. I would define it as entering into mutual relations, which aims to undermine dichotomy, what is very important. It's creating the third space, third value, third culture, doing something in between on the level of artistic techniques and artistic communities and inheritance of art. So thank you very much. I will stop. If I will find the bottom, I will stop to share the presentation.
Thank you so much, Małgorzata. Let me know if you hear me.
Yes, now I hear you. I saw some comments, but okay, so you hear me and you see me.
Yes, that's true. Okay, we have 5 minutes for questions and answers, so please feel free to ask Małgorzata.
Do you think that traditional forms of media, such as radio, will be completely obsolete in a while, or uninteresting to artists and to the audiences, or they will just blend into these new hybrid media, multimedia, and still continue to exist in some form?
Yeah, I'm sure that radio is blended now, so it's completely hybridity, because we see, for example, now the really big numbers of podcasts, which are very popular, and also not for the people of our age, but for youngs. And Spotify is very popular. It's the kind of disseminating audio culture, but in different way. But from the other side, there are also plenty of projects done by audiovisual and also sound artists that explore the materiality of waves in the terms of audio signals. So I think that it's not obsolete. I think that there is no obsolete medium. It depends only from the invention of the artists and from the context that the medium can be reconfigured again in the our process of social disseminating media culture. So not at all. It's still actual, and it's still, I think, a very interesting medium for work for artists, and also the way for disseminating communication through the internet now. So it's hybridity, it all.
Thank you very much, Małgorzata. I have got maybe one more question. I'm also not sure if I read precisely and heard well from your presentation that this abstract video can be perceived as social and cultural threat. And so I would like here just a clarification if I'm correct understanding here. And this I would like to refer to this that you were talking about this abstract visuality, either referring to hardly anything or making abstract some social or cultural events. So it looks as though that you are resigning from any specific cultural, social meaning, but your experimentation is pure artistic experimentation of medium, if I'm correct?
Yes and no, because from the one part, this is, of course, abstract form, but with the comment of the artist, it began to be much more broader social concerned art. For example, I'm talking, for example, about such artists like Kit Young, who, for example, express explores the topics of Black identity and manifests his race as a race traitor, manifests his attitude to these topics in US, for example. So I think that it is the kind of art which should be understood with a concept, with a comment, and with the intention of the abstract content. It's why it's social engaged. So we never done such that we explore and express and show only the artwork without the comments. We always present it with the context and with the comment of the author. So if it's purely abstract work with the intention expressed at the exhibition, with author's intention, it becomes social engaged. I can send you, if you are interested in, I can send you the particular works that present some abstract form with the very deeply social meaning.
Okay, thank you. This was Małgorzata Danciewicz-Pawlik from University of Wrocław. Thank you so much, Małgorzata, for joining us. And I really do hope there's now Noemi is present here with us. Noemi?
Hola.
Okay. We still do not see you, but tell me, do you hear us properly?
Yeah, I hear you, and my camera is connected, so...
Yeah, now we do see you too. Okay. Can you please start sharing your presentation?
Yes. Sorry, but I'm not quite sure how can I share it. Should I just use the presentation button on the below?
That's just the button with an arrow pointing up.
Yeah. I think I'm sharing it.
Okay, it sounds nice. Sorry for the feedback.
Can you see my screen?
For the moment, we do not see it properly. Let's see. Maybe try to do it once again, because this, no? Now we do not hear you. Try to restart the sharing option.
Can you see it now, or can you hear me?
It's starting.
I can't hear you.
Now you can hear us. You can't. You are sharing probably the whole screen, not just the window with application. Okay, Noemi, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
I can hear you, but then when I share the
Okay,
screen,
please.
I stop hearing you.
Please start the application without sharing. Okay, so start the application of PowerPoint or whatever you are using, and then share the window of the application only, not whole screen. Okay?
Yeah, I understand, but it doesn't give me the option of
Which browser are you using? Perfect.
Okay.
It's working. Do you hear us still?
Excuse me, what?
Do you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. So we are ready. So,
okay, sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem at all. So Naomi Iglesias Barrios from Faculty of Fine Arts from University of Lisbon, Portugal, is going to talk about ceramics mining the urban landscape.
Can you
Noemi, the floor is yours. You can start, okay?
Thank you. Can you see the full screen?
Yes.
Okay. So hello everyone, good morning. My name is Noemi Iglesias Barrios, and I'm going to do the presentation called the Technoceramics, Mining the Urban Landscape. As the presenter said, I'm a PhD student at the University of Fine Arts in Lisbon, and I'm also a grantee holder of the Foundation for the Science and Technology, which is supporting also my research. So I started to think about this concept of technoceramics when I realized that the mineral composition of a ceramic object is not that different from the mineral composition of an electronic device. I have a background working with ceramics and especially with porcelain, so I thought that it was very interesting to see how these very traditional materials and components that are usually linked to the development of ceramics suddenly start having like another type of importance within our technological world, because it was the same composition for the electronic devices. So if we see this chart, for example, we can see that the battery is composed with lithium, cobalt, aluminium, and the antennas are aluminium, stainless steel and brass, chrome, nickel. The data storage media is with iron and chrome. So if we look at this, and so on, you know, like in equipment, cables, wires, and everything. So if we look at the list of chemicals that are involved in this composition, but if we look at it from the ceramics perspective, we can realize that most of these elements are involved in the process of glaze making. Not that much about ceramics, but especially for the glaze, you know, like for example, or glazing or decoration, on surface decoration. Like for example, the cobalt will be used to do the blue decoration, or the iron will be used to do the green or red decoration. So if from the list we focus on one of them, I would like to speak about the cobalt, because cobalt is the one that has been more linked to the development of porcelain decoration. And that's because cobalt is one of these components that can hold the high temperature very well, and the appearance of the mineral will not disappear or change with the high temperature, because porcelain, you need to fire it from 1280 degrees on, and at this temperature some of the minerals might disappear, or you know, or maybe the color will not be as intense as it should be. But this doesn't happen with cobalt, and that's why it has been profoundly used within the art history, and especially within the ceramics history decoration. So to speak a little bit more about this history, we can see on the right-hand side one of these boreal vessels from ancient Egypt. They started to use cobalt in their sculptural creations, because, and especially with the boreal and vessels, because for them it was the blue, it symbolizes the sky, so that's why they painted with this cobalt blue most of their objects. And then on the right hand side, we can see one of these very recognizable shape and object that is the vessel from the Chinese dynasties, and they were the ones who really developed this technique in using cobalt as a decoration for porcelain surfaces. Going a little bit forward within the art history, we can also see that it has also been used in the paints, you know. And its geological consequences. And this is because right now the mining activities, I mean the dimensions of the mining activities and the consequences that are having for the earth environment and for the health of the people who is living around the mining areas are starting to be also considered when we think about mining. So we don't think about mining nowadays just as something that is going to help us move forward, but we have to also think it with these other negative consequences. So this is an image from where we can very clearly see what are these some of these landscape alterations, you know, from the mining activities. This is an open pit mine. So we can understand this as a delusive code of progress, because this current depletion of natural resources required for us to live our networked life is consequently leading to the expropriation of spaces, values, and infrastructures and forms of life that are submitted to capitalist valorization and process of dispossession. So while we need all these rare earth minerals, such as like the cobalt, the outdated and obsolete electronic devices return to the earth as a residue of our digital culture. And these kind of discarded things are reflecting the society's value system, and we should consider also this digital debris and its recycling methodology as a crucial point of reference for any attempt to imagine alternative futures. So with the concept of technoceramics, referring to the technosphere as something that happens in the sphere of things that are modified or developed by the humans. So a technoceramic object will be an index fossil of modern society, conceived to explore these possible forms of geosubjectivities from a creative-based empirical methodology, applying respectful actions towards natural resources in the creation of ceramic objects. So the methodology to make these objects is not going to be based on the continuously extracting activities from the earth. You know, it's not about keep digging into the landscape, but maybe using the resources that are already over the landscape in forms of residues or like the like this digital debris. We can also consider these objects as a source of raw material that we could recycle and use and reuse. In this case, to make ceramics. So these are some of the first experiments that I started to do following this concept of the technoceramics. But at this point, I still didn't have the recycled cobalt. So what I did, it was just to test how will it look like to use the materials and the minerals that are involved in the process of manufacturing an electronic device, and what will be the result within ceramics. So, for example, in the first slab, which is a porcelain slab with the material on top of it, I used some aluminium and manganese and iron, cobalt, nickel, and copper. The next one is with cobalt, nickel, and aluminium, and so on. So I had to, I fired them to 1,250 degrees, and I didn't want to go higher because sometimes when you go higher, even for porcelain, you might start getting some distortion and deformation in the object, and I wanted to keep it the way it was as a test slab. And these were the second tests that I did, and in these ones I used mainly cobalt because it was the material that I was focused on and the material that I was researching. So the next step in the research, it was to I thought that the step will be to visit an actual mine and see how these extractive activities will happen in a real environment, you know, in a cobalt mine. So I found this place in Norway. It's called Blafarbevarket or something like this. I'm sorry, I apologize for my accent. I'm not really Norwegian, and I don't know how to say it, but the translation of this word is the cobalt mines, and they are based in Modum, which is a small locality on the east part of the country in Norway. So first, I went to visit the National Archives of Norway to see the maps of the mine. The mine started at the end of the 18th century, and it was open for over a century, like more than 100 years. So during this time, during these 100 years, they will extract and produce 80% of the cobalt compounds of the world. So it was a very successful and a very important industry, especially in Europe, although they were shipping and working all over the world. And so even though it was like a company that started more than 2 centuries ago, the precision on making the maps, you know, and how to explain how they were starting to open all these paths and tunnels underneath the mine, it was very, it was super precise. And of course, maps are to be precise, but I also thought that they were kind of beautiful, you know, because they use all these colors and all these shapes, and it was made with some taste, I think. So here we see the mine like as if we see it from the top, and here we see the mine or the entrance of the mine as if we see it from the profile. You know, as we can see on top of this black line is the shape of the mountain, and then we can see the blue line, which is referring to the path to go inside the mine. I selected only these two maps, but there were so many maps in the archives, and they were all super beautiful. So after the archive consultation, I went to the mine, and this is the way the mine looks like in the surroundings. So here you can see the main house where the owner and the boss of the factory of the mine was living, and then he also had his office there and everything. And then in the houses on the left hand side, it was where they will transform where they will make the test to see if what they were digging, it was actually cobalt or it was something else. So here we can see some of the open pit section of the mine. So as you can see, the slope of the mine is where we can see the trees on top of the mountain, and then suddenly there is like this big cut that goes inside, like towards the root of the mine. And I kind of like how the workers were building like these bridges, or these sections of stone to of course, to don't fall into the hole. But I thought it was, from the sculptural point of view, I thought it was very interesting, to see how you can build your stand where you have to stand as you keep working. So what was interesting also about this mine, as I said, it wasn't only that they will take cobalt they will extract the cobalt from the earth. It was also very interesting to see how they will transform this cobalt into pigments, either for inks or for paintings or for the ceramic industry. Because before I went to the mine, I thought that the cobalt was used, like as you take it from the earth, you will just put it into the kiln with the ceramics, and then it will turn blue. But it wasn't like this. It was a very big process, and they had to mix the cobalt that they will extract with some kind of flux, like potash or quartz or borax, some other material that will make the compound crystallize. And then when it was crystallized, they will call it smalt, as we can see on the picture on the right hand side. And this smalt, it was this mix of the cobalt mineral extracted from the mine and some other flux, either borax or potash or quartz. So when they had this mix, they will fire it in big barrels at 900 degrees, more or less, and then they will, once the mix after the firing was cooled down, they will take it from the barrels and crush it, sieve it, and that's how they could obtain the mineral, the pigment, the blue pigment for the ink industry, or the cobalt oxide for the ceramic industry. So this was one of the actions that I made in the mine, because I thought that the visual impact of the modifications made by the mining activities, it was very impressive, for someone who just saw it for the very first time. So, but we have to also have in consideration that it was a very small place in the middle of nowhere, and so I kind of wanted to have some kind of action in the landscape. So I just did this very primal way of registering the surroundings of the mine. So I took a pencil in a very small library shop and some papers, and I was just, rubbing the paper over the stones. So the intention of doing this, it was more than more than producing an artwork or something. It was more about having some documentation from the mine, but not only in a photographic way, but also in a graphic way, but with the action involved. So here, for example, in this photo, you can see I'm in the middle of the mountain, so you can see how big these consequences are of the mining activities are, yeah, like it's not like, because all these stones are the leftovers produced due to the mining activities. So in order to extract the cobalt, they had to remove tons and tons and tons of material. And of course, you have to put it somewhere. So you will just put it in the surroundings, making all these mountains of leftovers that I thought it was quite impressive. So these are some of the images from the frottage that I did there. And I also took some stones from the mine and I sent it to the studio. And right now I'm in the process of taking the molds out of the stones. And then each part of the mold, I'm doing a work of refining the part of the mold and doing some kind of geometrization, so I can make a difference in between the stone imprint and the part of the mold. So these parts of the mold are becoming the prototypes to do the second molds. So I'm not gonna cast the stone, meaning that I'm not going to reproduce the stones. I'm not going to reproduce what it's already done. What I'm going to reproduce is this emptiness of the stone. I mean, what it takes to make a reproduction. So I'm going to cast. I'm doing these second molds of these parts, and this is what I'm going to cast with porcelain and some recycled cobalt. So this is some of the examples that I'm trying to achieve with this recycled cobalt. But I want to say that to get this recycled cobalt is being very, very difficult, because at the beginning I thought that it was something that I could do by myself. You know, I thought that I could just collaborate with someone to do the recycling of the recycling process of the electronic devices. But when I went to the mine, I realized that it's not something that an individual, as an artist or anything, but it's not a job of someone alone. You know, it's not an individual. So I thought I found some companies that are already recycling not only cobalt but some other metals from the electronic devices. These kind of processes are called urban mining, and I'm trying to collaborate with them, so they will supply the they will supply the recycled cobalt. And right now I'm really close of getting these samples of recycling cobalt to be able to develop these technoceramic objects. So thank you so much. If you want to check some of my previous works, you can also visit my website or my Instagram. And thank you. If you have some questions, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Noemi.
I don't know how to stop sharing.
And I'm sure there are questions.
Yeah,
Perfect. So, Q&A is open and ready for your questions. I see Mr. Kutuma.
Won't you come follow me?
Thank you for your very insightful, very interesting presentation. My question relates to the option and applicability of what you are doing in the mining sector, to look at it also more from the green metals and mining construct, because cobalt is actually, and lithium and many of the glazing materials that you talk about there are intimately involved with the decarbonization process. It's something that I will speak with you because I think you have presented something you presented what I also alluded to in my keynote address, this construct of the intersection between science and social sciences and art. And if you recall, my message was that from art flows the sciences rather than sciences flowing into the arts. The only real challenge is that it is difficult many times for people to understand it visually. So I thought what you presented is exceptionally clear and very helpful. But I think you can repurpose it as well for a more of a climate agenda process, which I hope we'll be able to pursue. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the observation. And yeah, as an artist, I think that, or at least from my experience and my perspective, I think it's important to help the public understand and you know, like the magnitude of these issues. And in this case, it will be a sustainable issue, or how can we actually go to a green transition. So. Because all the information is there for everyone to see it, but it's not presented in a way that we will kind of see it or engage with it. So I think as an artist, it's important to make it aesthetically beautiful, you know, so the people will be, you know, somehow you will kind of engage with the object, for example, and then through the object you will hear the history and then you will engage. So I do think that it is important from us to find a way of somehow beautifully present it to the public.
Sorry, as a quick follow-up question, how are you presenting that? I fully agree with your construct, but how are you presenting it from a digital perspective in that context? Are you?
What do you mean digital? Like
the physical and digital. Are you? Have you thought about how that might look like, so to speak, more in terms of its presentation? Yes, thank you.
Yeah. For example, I started to do these molds, and I'm making the second molds of the molds. So I'm thinking, or the way I visualize it right now is like an installation of porcelain stones out of the stones with some of these recycled cobalt, to see also what are the possibilities or the aesthetical possibilities of using recycled components into the ceramic industry. So from the physical perspective, I'm working on it, and soon I'm gonna start casting the molds, because you know the mold making process is a long process, but at the end of the month I will have all the molds ready and I will start casting. And the way I visualize it is like it's like, I don't know, like with all the stones or with all the casts, I will try to find a way of presenting not only the object but also the idea behind the object. And in terms of the digital presentation, in that way, I don't know exactly how will I digitally present it, because I'm more linked to the 3D producing. Like I'm a sculptor, so I usually produce objects. But of course, I will think also how can I present it if I can do it maybe like a tutorial or like a video or something. I don't know. That's something that I will also have in consideration when I work on it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a last question.
Thank you. Thanks, Noemi, for the presentation. I think my question was pertaining the extraction of the cobalt. Have you been able to determine if it's an eco-friendly process, or it could have a similar or equal effect to mining the cobalt itself?
Yeah, I checked this because there is a book called Urban Mining, because the first person who started this concept, it was Professor Hideo Nanjo from the university in Japan, in Tokyo, and he says, he mentions that sometimes there are certain minerals that, like for example, to that it will be very, very difficult, not difficult, but the process of recycling certain minerals, it's sometimes it's more, it's more polluted than actually taking it from the, like that actually extracting it. But in the case of cobalt, it's quite safe, because it's not like, because the process of opening a mobile phone, for example, or something, it doesn't have, it can be made like mechanically, like you put it into a kind of like a machine, and you do something like this, and then everything gets dismembrated, and then the process to obtain the cobalt from these electronic devices is not, it's quite respectful towards the environment. It's not like something that will require to fire it, and then all these fumes will go to the atmosphere. It's not like this. But in that book, for example, they did say, I can't remember right now the mineral, but it was something that was inside the motor of the cars, and they said that to obtain that one, it was super, super difficult, because they have to, go through certain processes that still wasn't respectful towards the environment. So what was the point of, I think with this, it's important to kind of find like an equilibrium, because sometimes just recycling for recycling, because it's a word that it sounds good, in our century, like, oh, recycling, yeah, of course, but sometimes it's not really that positive. And yeah, your question is very accurate, because there are certain elements that is better even not to recycle them.
Thank you so much for your answer. Thank you. Let me thank on behalf of us for your wonderful talk. It was very inspiring, and I'm wishing you good luck with your future actions. Thank you, Naomi. Noemi.
Thank you.
And this is the time to follow the talk of Mr. Oluwatosin Ibitoye. And I would like to know if John is with us.
Yes, I am with you.
Okay, perfect, sir. So let's start sharing your screen before we start your talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Do you have a presentation for us, or you want?
I do, but I am having a challenge with my gadget here. Please, can you share the screen of Tosin Ibitoye? There's another device, Tosin Ibitoye.
I don't know.
So I'm trying to.
I don't know. Understand? Can you try to share your presentation from your computer using the button with the little arrow pointing up?
Okay, I'm doing that now. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. I'm sorry for that. Did you share?
Oh.
But for the moment, we see just the screen, not the presentation itself. Did you open the presentation before sharing the window? If not, please do.
Possibly not. Okay. Let me try and use. Okay.
So stop sharing, open the presentation first, and then share just the window with presentation.
Hello, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, we are here. We just see you on the screen, but no presentation. So please do open your presentation in a separate window and try sharing just that window.
Hello.
Yeah, something is working. Okay.
I'm sharing my screen now. Can you see my screen?
We see both of that, but now it's disappeared. Okay. John, tell me, do you? Okay, now we see the document. You want to share with us the document? John, tell me, do you have some slides with illustration or just the talk to share? If it's just a talk, so let's talk instead of sharing.
I guess the challenge has been resolved now. The challenge has been resolved now. Can you hear me clearly now?
I do not hear you, sorry. This is too complicated, maybe. Maybe just let's do the talk instead of sharing the document, okay? If you do not have any illustration.
Okay. Let me just, can I just proceed presenting without sharing the screen? I guess that is where the challenge is coming from.
Yeah, so let's do the talk without sharing the screen, okay? Is it fine for you?
Okay.
Okay, so this is Oluwatosinjo Ibitoye from Kwara State University from Nigeria, and he's going to talk about the paper entitled Towards the Glocalization of Yoruba Folk Pop Music in the Global Age, example of Segun Akinlolu, Beautiful Nubia. The stage is yours, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm glad to join you from Nigeria here, and I'm very sorry for the challenge with issue of sharing the screen. So I am presenting on towards the globalization of Yoruba folk pop music in a global age. An example of Segun Akinlolu, Beautiful Nubia. All right. Now, let me start by discussing the crux of glocalization, right? The crux of glocalization, which is the emphasis of this study. Also, before going further, let me also stress that this study is a work in progress, so it is open to interrogation and contributions from all quarters. Now, talking about glocalization, this concept is an interface and a melting pot for the global and the local, right? That is to think globally and act locally, more like globalizing the local and localizing the global. However, the emphasis here is the folk pop music. Now, when we're referring to the folk pop music, we are talking about that music genre that is a stylistic hybrid of the indigenous folk music and contemporary popular music, with emphasis on the Yoruba people in southwestern Nigeria. All right. After the European contacts with indigenous African culture, particularly the Yoruba culture, which came through trials of Atlantic slave trade, colonialism, and religious missionaries. And the folk music of the Yorubas had to evolve in synthetic hybridity. All right. But looking at current 21st century, there are global challenges, the quest for global peace, homegrown solutions to challenges here and there. So musicians in this part of the world, some folk pop musicians in this part of the world now look for a means of conscious revival, renaissance, and a way of reinventing folk music culture from a local perspective. That is what we call glocalization, right? A way of transforming the society through the local musical resources, of course, produced for a global audience towards the change we desire in 21st century amid the challenges in this century. Looking at Nigeria, we have issues surrounding banditry, insurgency, uprising here and there. So now when we are now talking about this global and local interface, which makes us have a globalization, the emphasis here would now be cultural preferences, right? And looking at particularizing tendencies with recognition of the political environment, the socio-economic environment also, right? Our preliminary findings using this particular musician, Segun Akilolu, is a Yoruba folk pop musician and is also popularly known as Beautiful Nubia, a glocal name at that, a glocal name that is a name which resonates with his local audience, at the same time being conversant with his global audience, transcending beyond the locality of the Yorubas in southwestern Nigeria. Okay, now if we look at his music, one particular thing he does so much is a commodification of culture through communication and digital technologies. We would agree that the world is currently a global village. The world has transcended beyond manual and analog realities to a digital and absolutely global world using digital technology. So now via his official social media channels, it tends to reach out to a wider global audience as a way of using transformative song text, transformative music, right? Poignant melodies, organic hybridity, syncretism, what we call the African organum, using polyphony and of course poetic folkloric traditions to create his own particular music. Of course, looking at globalization, the transcontinental society that we have found ourselves with flows and networks here and there, what now makes a music different, especially a music that resonates with the indigenous culture, right, is the particularizing tendencies of that culture, right? So globalization here relates with the way globally distributed services and products, the way they are adjusted to accommodate consumers and of course to accommodate audiences in a local market as well as a global market. Of course, using internet technology, using artificial intelligence, and of course, renewable energy, marked by the fourth industrial revolution. All right. So, and this is not far-fetched because when we see that. The world now combats with, of course, the world is a global village, yet we are now combating with more challenges where, we have issues of war here and there, violence, insecurity, corruption, man's inhumanity to man, economic exploitations, secessionists, kidnappings, insurgencies, and a series of issues here and there. So this study, the emphasis of this study is to trace the impacts of globalization on the indigenous music culture and how indigenous musicians are re-evolving and transforming the music culture in a global village such that the music will not lose taste with its local audience, yet it will resonate also with a global audience towards combating all these challenges in the global village that we have found ourselves. Of course, so the study intends to interrogate the transformative potential of music, all right, and of course look at how the musician we are studying, how he has used the concept of localization, that is local intercultural musicianship, picking musical resources from his indigenous culture, syncretizing and hybridizing, using hybridity with Western foreign instruments, such that this musical content can resonate across board. Now, when we look at the methodology of this study particularly intends to select 5 albums, that is long plays, from this artist, Beautiful Nubia, that's whom we also refer to as Segun Akinlolu, using an average of 4 tracks from each of the long plays, and having about 20 tracks in all to interrogate his local intercultural musicianship. Even though he is an indigenous musician, he is a local musician. His emphasis is his vision and reach is popular. His vision and reach is wider global audience, especially using digital technology such as the YouTube channels, the YouTube Music, Audiomack, Spotify, Twitter, Boomplay, Deezer, Amazon Music, Cobius, Shazam, Apple Music, Tidal, and a whole lot of other digital platforms. So this methodology will be used to ask some of the research questions we intend to solve. That is, okay, what are the global realities? How has the global realities affected local musical realities? And of course, conclusively, we want to emphasize that digitalization of music using information technology corporations like Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft has opened new vistas for commercialization of culture, commodification of culture, and different economies. The local intercultural musicianship. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. Can you confirm, do you hear me? Can you
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your talk. This is time for question and answers. I know this topic is sensitive since it's about national and trying to reach the scope, but still preserve of something which is ours. So it's difficult idea, and we feel this of opportunity to reach global world, but also kind of worries we can have of losing ourselves in the world. So let's ask John. I see no hands for the moment, but I would like to see some.
Hi, Tosin. Thank you for your presentation. I think mine was a question about exactly what you're looking into. I wanted to know if what aspects of culture are being preserved in the music that Beautiful Nubia is doing. Are you looking at, the aspects of culture that he's preserving, and as well as those that he's including from urban culture? Yeah. Or is it just one of the two?
Thank you very much for this question. Looking at beautiful Nubia's music, I intend to bring to fore aspects of the indigenous culture that he is preserving from going into extinction with the impact of globalization. Right, trying to prevent some aspect of the indigenous culture from being eroded with globalization, yet taking into cognizance is global audience. Looking at the way he uses poetic folkloric tradition, indigenous language, indigenous musical instrument, as well as syncretizing these instruments with Western orchestral instruments, such as the brass instruments, the wind instruments, the strings instruments, and transforming the society eventually. So the emphasis here is that he's conscious of this culture to prevent his culture from being eroded, yet conscious of a global audience, conscious of the global reality, because the world is now a global village. Thank you very much.
2 questions. Okay. Who's going to do the first? Okay,
Thank you. Yes, I'm asking my namesake, John. You responded very well to the question, but I'm still worried that to an extent, I don't know how you respond to this globalization of traditional African, or what you call globalization of traditional African music. At some point, I feel like it homogenizes music and leads to the loss of traditional music culture. So that currently when you listen to Nigerian pop song, Kenyan pop song, they're being sung in different languages, but they sound the same in terms of the beats. Don't you think there's something we lose in that regard in terms of homogenizing and therefore losing what was traditional hours, and losing the different kinds of sounds that we have traditionally? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You are very right. And this is one of the criticisms that globalization has received, eventually evolving into glocalization, because globalization has been criticized with issues of homogenizing, and that is why the particular musician we have chosen to study, unlike other popular musician, is a folk pop musician. He's not just a pop musician, because the pop musicians are sort of the globalization of African music, but Beautiful Nubia is that of localization of the African music. Is now looking at it from not homogenizing the African culture, as well not to a restricted environment. So some of the looking at his music, for instance, you will find indigenous language which you may not find in some pop music of African musicians. Many African pop musicians, of course, now prefer to use the foreign Western English language, or what we can call the pidgin language, seeing the indigenous language as outdated, absolutely local and irrelevant to the current 21st century. However, Beautiful Nubia, in his consciousness, resonates with his indigenous culture, but promoting this indigenous culture via global mediums, such that it can reach wider and it can be promoted. So with his music, the issue of homogenization is not going to come in, because he has now globalized. He has now brought in particularizing tendencies and, of course, cultural aspects into his music. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love music and I love the conversation. Have a question. Easily, we've realized that creatives are not being rewarded by the medium through which their work is going on, or we feel like the rights and the payments are not working rightly. My question is, are you going to discuss or address the rights and payments towards rewarding such a person who is out there to make the work available?
Well, this question calls for deep reflection, because this is one of the deep worries of creatives, especially in this part of the world. And that is one of the focus of this study. Now, if we look at globalization as a concept, the globalization will not restrict you to local audiences alone or global audiences. For instance, if as an indigenous musician, you are performing and putting up your shows with your local audience, you get paid, and if such pays are not rewarding enough, the world is now global. Like I said, it can now take such local contents to global platforms using digital platforms. Now, looking at the monetization of various digital platforms, YouTube Music, YouTube channel, Spotify, and all of these digital channels, they have a way of bringing organic incomes, organic rewards, even when such musicians are just sleeping after producing their content and sharing their content to a wider world. So the audience is not homogeneous now. The audience will now become heterogeneous. The audience will now become widespread. So as such, musicians might be getting rewarded from their local countries, from their local environment. They can get rewarded from global environment and global audiences using commodification of culture through digital platforms, through digital technologies. I hope that will solve this problem. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The last question is coming from Bogna Gladen-Obijinska from Poland.
Hello, thank you so much for your presentation. I will draw a little bit on the question of Professor Mugubi, and I don't even know how to properly ask this question, but in Europe, we are using the idea of the United Europe, of the European Union, as a counterpart to our difficult history of particular countries' nationalisms. I have a feeling that in Africa, the situation is the opposite, that in order to promote the particular cultures of African countries with their immense diversity, even within each country, with different tribes, different languages, different traditions, a lot of artists are using the Pan-African idea of us, the Africans, to promote particular different cultures in their diversities. And I see there is a tension between on the one hand, using this kind of vehicle for promoting these particular cultures, but at the same time losing the particularity, the diversity, especially to people from the outside, like Europeans, who may tend to lump everything into this big Pan-African category, and it may be challenging. How do you see this challenge in the field of music? Do you think the idea of Africa is helping or not?
Well, if I get the question clearly, the question surrounds issue of Pan-Africanism. Is that it? Hello?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Thank you. I said, is the question surrounding Pan-Africanism. Can she please ask the question again? I didn't get that clearly.
Then maybe we should leave it for after the session, because I think we're running out of time. I will write you my question, and maybe you might have a moment to answer it later.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much.
One more question. I'm Roman. I want to ask about very popular Yoruba artists like maybe Wizkid, maybe Simi. Are you finding some localization in what they are creating?
Well, looking at popular Yoruba artists like Wizkid, like Davido, they tend to be more globalizing rather than localizing. They tend to be more homogenizing rather than resonating with the indigenous culture. These are some of the problems found in this culture with globalization. Globalization has made them to now see their indigenous culture as such that is not to be related with, because they are now more emphatic, more focused on the global audience, rather than looking inwards, reflecting inwards, and picking contents from their indigenous culture for the global audience. So they are more of globalizing rather than localizing.
Okay, thank you, and all the best for next week's general election in Nigeria.
Thank you very much for this. We really hope for into the general elections next week.
Thank you so much, John, for your talk and discussion and replies. This is end. Let's.
Thank you.
This is also the end of the first session from this afternoon. After the lunch break, we should meet here in 2:45. So we have 45 minutes for the lunch. For those who are online, please stay tuned, because we are expecting to have one regular session and the keynote lecture from CD Mio. See you soon.
Zakira Muhammad yuko mbioni kumaliza umasikini.